great to be here. I love Beaver Creek. I love you all. But I will say in a really positive note that 250 years on, who would have thought we are the greatest of allies of any two countries in the world. We are the greatest of friends. Your president is half Scottish. That's true. And owns half of Scotland as well. I think it's just, and I also can tell you this sincerely, that the British really admire your resilience, your leadership, your innovation, and the independence. So here's to that. I'll start with that. We've got so much to unpack. We had a great dinner last night. It was 2 hours, and we need another 5 hours, so we're going to put this into 1 hour. I'm very conscious, Eric has told me a few times this morning, there is an app, and you can all ask questions, and I have this gadget here, so I'm going to weave in the questions. We're going to do 45 minutes of me asking intelligent questions to very intelligent people, try and ask intelligent questions. But I do want to start, I'm a massive news junkie, Bloomberg 20 years, and we've had some breaking news this morning. Stephen doesn't really care about the news, doesn't read the news, so it doesn't really bother him. So I'm going to ask Mary first, because Jerome Powell, as you may know, in Wyoming, gave a talk, his last speech actually, 2 hours ago, and he, according to the analysts this morning, he is turned quite dovish. So there's a rate meeting in September 16th, 17th. It is now highly expected that there'll be a quarter-point rate cut, having not cut rates this year. And the words he used, in fact, if I get my facts right, there's a shifting in economic risks. So I'm going to ask Mary, first of all, on this one, and then we'll go to Mike. I think Stephen could go there, but I don't think he wants to. How important, Mary, is the independence of the central bank in this country?
Do we have an independent central bank?
At the moment.
Can you all hear me on this mic? Yeah. No, you can't hear me? Hello? Okay. I don't think we have an independent central bank. We haven't had an independent Federal Reserve chair since Paul Volcker. Statement this morning was interesting. He was indeed dovish. The markets loved it. I particularly loved it because our companies were up 6%, 12% on the day. So not that I'm following, but I'm following. No, he has shifted toward a dovish position. And yeah, the Fed has a difficult mandate, a dual mandate that he spoke to this morning. Inflation risk continues, but we also have a lot of pressure on the labor market, and I think the focus of the Fed is shifting more to the labor market weakness. Does that answer your question?
Almost, yeah, of course it does. Of course it does. Mike, do you want to add to that?
No.
Okay. Stephen, do you want to add to that?
I want to talk about the Middle East.
Okay. So moving swiftly on.
It's too bad Arthur Burns is dead. You'll recall Arthur Burns was born in Ukraine, got a degree at Columbia University, and then was appointed by Richard Nixon to lower interest rates and destroyed the American economy. And it took Paul Volcker and President Reagan's courage and a lot of pain, a lot of tremendous pain, to get back on track. Be careful what you wish for. I'm no economist. I'm not qualified to be on the Federal Reserve or to appoint anybody on it, but I study history. And we've seen this movie before. And we better make sure we don't have a sequel. A lot of things to balance, interests to balance. Employment and jobs and growth in the economy are critical, and so is holding back inflation. And it's a dual mandate, and they got to walk the line and do them both, and I want both, not one or the other.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't agree more. Just one more thing to add. I think there's just too much focus on rates. I think it's a far bigger problem than rates. I think it's a problem with the balance sheet.
Agreed. Before I go into completely agree. I want to have a quick show of hands. How many in this room believe that America's position as the global leader is at risk? Hands up if you think it is at risk. It is at risk. How many believe it's not at risk? So it's a minority. So I'm going to ask that at the end and see if they've convinced you to change your mind. Let's just start with Stephen. Is America still the architect of the global order?
First of all, I want to thank Jennifer, Chairwoman, for the invitation. I also want to thank all the people who declined and made possible my being here. Beginning with Victor Davis Hanson, my colleague at the Hoover Institution. One point of information, MSNBC has changed its name to the Red Army Channel. Yes, that was my suggestion, by the way. I'm familiar with the Red Army Channel. So, America is an unprecedented world power. It is 25% of the global economy since 1880. There's never been a country like that. 150 years, a quarter of the global economy, with 5% of the global population. That was true when there were tariffs and when there were no tariffs, when there was no income tax and a crazy high income tax. It was true during world wars and after world wars. Policy has a lot less impact on the long-term trajectory of America because the dynamism comes from the society. It comes from the people. Policy has effects certainly on individual lives and companies in the short term. But overall, this is a breathtaking story. 25% of the global economy still today. Other countries have risen and fallen. Europe was once 30% of the global economy. It's now 17% of the global economy. So you want to talk about decline? Sure. America is a governance superpower, not just an economic superpower, because of our system of government and our institutions. America is a science, tech, innovation superpower. America is an energy superpower, once again. America is a cultural superpower. And America has the superpower of more allies, partners, and friends than any country in recorded history. Almost 80 signed mutually obligatory treaties with other countries that are voluntary. So you've never seen a power like this, and it would take a lot for this power to go into decline. It would take a lot for this power to be displaced. You don't get this kind of power overnight, and you don't lose it overnight either. Yes, there's a lot of disaffection domestically and confusion about America's role in the world. But we're going through a period where social media and assimilating social media has made it difficult for a democracy to balance itself. We had this with radio, we had it with television, we have it again today. But yes, the answer is yes, America still is the architect of the global order. It cannot easily abdicate that position. There is no country on the horizon that could displace America the way America displaced the UK for that. There's a lot of... They didn't go quietly.
He loves it.
That's a myth.
Just prime target.
They did not go quietly. But, and they're friends again, as he noted, and they're great allies and partners. And we're privileged to have our former colonial master as our ally.
And can I add, actually, to Matthew's brilliant speech earlier, there are also two very famous Iron Men, FDR and Winston Churchill.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
those two together.
Superpower is about competent and compassionate leadership and social solidarity and trust. If you have competent and compassionate leadership and social solidarity and trust, you're unbeatable. So we ourselves are the ones who are causing grief on both of those axes. Let me read you Abraham Lincoln, the less famous Lyceum speech in 1938, one paragraph. At what point shall we expect the approach of danger? By what means shall we fortify against danger? Shall we expect some transatlantic military giant to step the ocean and crush us at a blow? Never. All the armies of Europe, Asia, and Africa combined, with all the treasure of the earth in their military chest, with a Bonaparte for commander, could not by force take a drink from the Ohio or make a track on the Blue Ridge in a trial of 1,000 years. At what point then is the approach of danger to be expected? Yeah, I answer, if it ever is to reach us, it must spring up among us. It cannot come from abroad. If destruction be our lot, we must ourselves be its author and finisher. As a nation of free men, we must live through all time or die by suicide. That's it. This is a Freedom Conference.
I want to discuss, if I can, the risks and the cracks. Mary is, I think, one of the, well, for me, the greatest, most informed China thinker that I've talked to in my career. China is a threat. It's a threat internally, cyber-wise. It's a threat, which you know more about than I do. How great is the threat, and does the US recognize the threat? And then we'll go to the Middle East and China's relations.
Well, first I'll just echo what Steve said and thank everybody for being here. It's always an honor, but particularly with these two on the stage, as well as our representative from the mother country.
It's a theme.
And I'll amplify a bit to what Steve said about the various aspects of our many powers, but primarily the military and the economic power, which of course go hand in hand. It is absolutely true that the free world looks to us for leadership. You can look at the gathering in the White House last week on short order, or was it this week? The weeks are sort of running together for me. To have the leaders of the UK, France, Germany, NATO, the EU, Italy, Finland come together at a moment's notice is a physical demonstration of America's leadership role. Yes. And I'll also tell you that behind the scenes, and Mike can speak to this as well from his experience in the White House, but I've attended many NATO meetings, ASEAN, you name it, the Quad, et cetera, East Asia Summit. And when you go behind closed doors, those nations absolutely look to us for leadership. Mm-hmm. It's very clear. And privately, even partners like the Saudis will tell you, we're so glad you're involved. We're so glad that you forged the Abraham Accords. We need you here. We can't do this ourselves. But it's something that we think is deeply right and good, not just for you, but for peace in the region and for our shared interests. So absolutely 100% they're looking to us for leadership. That being said, to your question, John, we can't be complacent. And I think one of the most underappreciated threats to our prosperity is the technological advancement of the CCP. There's an organization called ASPI that's based in Canberra, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. And they came out with a study about 60-some leading technologies in the world and who was most advanced. And China leads in something like 60 of the 64. It's shocking, right? It's shocking. I think you all should go and read this report. It's really a wake-up call. And then if you simply look at the balance of power, if you count the forces that China has, it's bracing. A 1 million-man army, plus 1.5 million internal police, plus 500 million militia, the world's largest navy, the third largest air force, biological chemical weapons programs. They attack our satellites every day. They cut cables under the sea. They have asymmetrical threats to our aircraft carriers. They have absolutely no ethical boundaries in the way that they're using these technological advancements. But most importantly, and I told John I wanted to say this while we were here, is that the infiltration of the United States is significant. We will be attacked here. The Salt Typhoon hack, which happened, which you should all read about and all know about. How many people have heard of it in the audience? Yes, ma'am, great. Oh, this is great. It's a well-informed audience. They can read your texts, listen to your phone calls. That means two-factor authentication is totally meaningless for all of us. We don't know their intent. They're burrowed into our critical infrastructure. We are entirely vulnerable right now. And worryingly, we as a US government have not deemed them an adversary, even though they call us an adversary to their own people. So while I agree with what Steve is saying, certainly we exert huge economic leadership and military, even diplomatic leadership in international institutions, et cetera, terrible and corrupt as they are, right? Yes. Thank you. We cannot rest on our laurels because China China knows what it wants. It is indeed a fragile power. It's a deeply corrupt power. I accept all of that. Xi Jinping could be gone tomorrow. You always have to stipulate that. But it is a huge threat to our interests and our way of life. And despite our dynamism and our economy and our military might, I don't think the American public appreciates the severity of the threat, the extent of it, and the proximity of the threat to you and me.
What can it look like, Mary? What's the kind of, not the worst case scenario, but what do you see as a realistic scenario? That the US hasn't got the tools to deal with this threat.
Well, China tends to do things in pieces, right? They'll punch you in the face and then sort of see how you react. And if you don't, then they'll punch you again a little harder. And so you've seen this. I mean, just in these last days, they came out with a statement, one of the chief propagandists, and said, we're expanding the 9-dash line. We're expanding our illegal claims to the South China Sea. And you, Philippines, if you move over this line with a ship, well, that'll be a violation. And that matters because, again, to what Steve said about our treaty obligations, we talk a lot about Taiwan, but we have no treaty with Taiwan. We have a treaty with the Philippines. And that's extremely important, and I think you should pay attention to what's going on in those waters off the Philippines, because that's actually a test of us and our resolve, and I think actually more telling and important than what's going on off the waters off Taiwan.
Just to add, you were in Hong Kong. We overlapped for 10 years?
We did, yeah.
What was how long were you there
I was
for?
there 6.5 years.
6.5 years.
But I can't go back anymore.
Yeah, well,
And we should say the Jimmy Lai trial is coming to a close.
That's right.
Good friend of mine, and so that's another bellwether, right?
I think the president actually has put his support behind that recently.
He has, and actually your country has a greater responsibility as the former colonial power, but you won't go there.
I won't deny it. I won't deny it. Moving quickly on to the Middle East. Mike, often Latin America, obviously, as we were discussing last night with Stephen, China's very strong in Latin America. We don't often equate China in the Middle East as a significant threat to the US presence. Now, your experience is phenomenal. So what are you seeing? What do you know on the ground? That how worrying is it?
I think it's very worrying, and I think that we're even among our leadership are not really aware of it. The Chinese built a military base in the Middle East around about 2017 in Djibouti, but Djibouti's in Africa, so we didn't code it as a military base, but it's on the Bab el-Mandeb, which is the strait that leads up from the Indian Ocean to the Suez Canal, which the Houthis are blocking to shipping going to Israel or shipping that they deem to be supportive of Israel. The Houthis get targeting data from China. There are two entities in the world that have surface-to-ship ballistic missiles, and they are. You want to guess?
On the spot?
Yeah.
If I guess it wrong, so I'm not going to guess.
The Houthis
Weak.
and China.
Oh,
Those are the only two entities in the world that have this thing. And the only purpose of a surface-to-ship ballistic missile is to take out an American aircraft carrier. Or some of the...
How many know that China and the Houthis have that? How many are aware of that?
Everyone at the Freedom Conference.
This is a real have-a-go at John Dawson day, isn't it? Really? No, I didn't know that.
The shipping through the Bab el-Mandeb now is free for the Russians and the Chinese. So the Houthis give them a pass. They don't give anyone else a pass. So in last October, the Israelis took out the Iranian ability to produce medium-range solid fuel propellant ballistic missiles. This is the biggest conventional threat to Israel from Iran. And the Israelis destroyed that capability for what they thought was about a year, the ability to build it. But the Israeli estimate was wrong because the Chinese immediately came in and gave the components and the materials that the Iranians needed to stand up their production capability again. And the Iranians came up with a new plan to double or triple their arsenal in 2 to 5 years, which the Israelis regarded as an existential threat, and all of our Gulf allies regard as an existential threat. There's a reason why the Chinese are doing this. They are, for them, the Iranian missile threat against all of our allies and against us. Let's not forget, we just had a little war, or a little battle between the United States and the Houthis, and we lost. Our military told our political leadership that it could take care of the Houthi problem, and they went through about $2 billion worth of ammunition and didn't solve it. So it continues. And behind the Houthis is Iran. Behind Iran is China. And the Chinese are doing very much like Mary said. They hide their hand, or they're not ostentatious about it, but they find those key areas. Let me just add one more. Iran has a shadow banking. Iran sells almost all of its oil to China, and it doesn't bring home the money, the payment for the oil. It has a shadow banking network that goes from East Asia into the Middle East and then on even into Europe. It's a very complex network of front companies, banks, and so on. But we really should be looking at that as a Chinese network. So Iran gives virtually all of its oil, sells virtually all of its oil to China. It then is paid in yuan, which is not convertible. But through the shadow banking network, which in the most important node of which is Dubai, which is our ally, those yuan are translated into dollars. And this is out of the reach of the American sanctions network. The key nodes are Hong Kong, Dubai, and Turkey. Those are the key nodes. This is not just. First of all, this gives China, which has no serious hydrocarbon reserves, it's turned it into a significant energy power. It is refining fossil fuels and selling it to American allies. I think it's also selling it to North Korea, although I don't know that for a fact. But so they have a subsidized energy economy thanks to Iran, and a clandestine economic system so that they can use that to evade sanctions. All of this is a laboratory for they're thinking ahead about a war for Taiwan and how they're going to protect themselves from American sanctions.
So then, what are the trigger points to look out for? If that's the laboratory, and then there's the kind of scenario you've just laid out, what are the kind of news-breaking elements we should watch out for that China will do that we need to really raise the alarm?
I'm not worried about.
Well, it's building and building and building.
All the things
isn't it?
that Steve said, I think, are 100% true. We're an amazing power. We have all of these allies that China doesn't have. China doesn't have a single ally. I mean, maybe you could say Pakistan, but really, it doesn't have a single ally in the sense that it provides all the security that we provide to our allies and has a commitment.
Would you describe Russia? Well, that's a question for him. Russia as a China ally?
I'd say they're in an alignment against us. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea against us. That's what's going on. But their goal in the Middle East,
an axis, as it were.
Ultimately, they want to supplant us in the Middle East because they are dependent on oil and gas.
So that for you is the biggest threat to the States?
No.
Right.
This is their long-term goal is to supplant us. But in the meantime, they just want to erode our power. They want to, we had to put 2 THAAD missile batteries in Israel against Iran that we blew through a big chunk of our arsenal. It takes a long time and a lot of money to build these interceptors. Interceptors are much more sophisticated than the missiles coming in, and it takes more interceptors than, it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So we blew through a lot of our interceptors. Our East Asian allies, I had an East Asian diplomat, I won't say what country, in my office last week, and he said, we really want peace in Gaza. We're really angry with the Israelis. And we're even going to consider recognizing Palestine in September. And I said why, we talked about it, and ultimately it came down to this question of interceptors. You'd never think that there would be, that anyone in East Asia is thinking about the Middle East in that way. But the strategy of China and Iran and Russia is to deplete the global stockpile of interceptors, to force costs upon us. We guarantee the routes through which energy goes to China, subsidized energy goes to China. We guarantee it, and China is busy increasing the cost to us for guaranteeing their supply lines.
Mike, can I just
Yeah,
add
and I want to bring
quickly?
Stephen as well.
Yeah, I really want to hear Steve.
Mary.
But I talked about the erosion. You're talking about the erosion of American power and how China is doing that. I gave you some stats on the military erosion, but think about the economic sphere. China is the largest trading partner of more nations in the world than we are. Think about the diplomatic sphere. China has done, well, even military. China does military exercises with Saudi, Oman, Thailand. We have a treaty with Thailand. What's happening today? Xi Jinping is hosting Erdogan and Modi of India. So Turkey, NATO ally, India, key democracy in South Asia, key bulwark against China. He's hosting them with great fanfare in China today. So that erosion that Mike talked about is real. And I think we have to look at the data of how they are separating countries from us and trying to pull our allies away from us in all of these different areas. But I want to hear Steve talk about the Russia-China connection.
It's begun. This is not something that's coming. This is not something that might happen in 2027 or next election or 10 years from now, or your kids might see it. It's underway. China is not safe because the American political system is superior. A lot of people in China prefer our system to their system, even if they're not able to voice this publicly. So until China can erode American power sufficiently, that regime is not safe. This is not some whim of a political leader. This is not the preferences of Xi Jinping. This is not something that will go away if we have better relations with them. We could cut a deal with China. It's called surrender. That deal is on the table. You can do that deal any day. Or you can stand up to China's attempt to erode American power in the various domains where you still have huge assets, capabilities, and they have vulnerabilities. That's the choice before our nation. President Trump, with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, with the National Security Council, H.R. McMaster, my colleague, Matt Pottinger, turned the conversation in this country around about China. That China was threatening us because our existence was existential for them. Every day that we're strong, it threatens the existence, the survival of that Chinese regime. So they are hammer and tongs, 24/7, every domain, after us. They want to evict American power from Asia. Do they want more than that? Well, appetite grows in the eating. You succeed in one region, well, why not go for broke? Why not continue? And so it's a false debate. What do they really want? Do they want world dominance or not? The appetite grows in the eating. So let's figure out how we might have a national project to stand up to China. Not a one administration comes in and they do it for a while and then they go out. We did this for 50 years in the Cold War, and it succeeded. The world became predominantly free because the United States was the most powerful free country in world existence, and because the United States engaged globally to turn the tide. Both of those world wars, we were the difference. World War I and World War II. I got to tell you, the outcome was not a certainty. Nor is this outcome a certainty. The Chinese are for real, and they're good. Part of that is on us. We did this. And so they have vulnerabilities. Let's get on the front foot rather than the back foot. Let's understand this threat better, and let's have a global policy. I understand that we were made weak by the culture war on the left. Nobody knows this better than I do. I was 7 years a PhD student at Berkeley when Ronald Reagan was president. I was 33 years on the faculty at Princeton University. I'm now 3 years on the faculty at Stanford University. You can add it up. I started when I was 2, but that's 40-something years. So I know what happened. I was there. I was at those meetings, and I voted against it. And it happened. But is the answer to have the culture war from the other side? I know it's good for ratings. I know it's really good for emotional enjoyment to get back at those who, with their oppression, their cultural oppression, imposed all of those values on people who didn't want those values. I was there. But is that the answer? If I were the Chinese intelligence agency, you know what I would do? I would say, let's have America engage in a culture war forever. Let's have them fight each other to the death. Now, American institutions are so valuable, and how do you know? Because each side is fighting to the death to gain control over them. And neither side can succeed. You can't control American institutions. As much as you fantasize you might be able to do this. You'll be hearing more and more about this, as you've been hearing for 17 years about this here at the Freedom Conference. So my point is that, yes, it is a threat, but, who destroyed our fiscal sanity? Was it China or was it us? Yeah. And who continues to destroy our fiscal sanity? Is it our enemy China or is it us? Yeah, okay. So let's do something about that. Who's distracting us in endless culture war that's great for ratings, that is not necessarily an investment in innovation, science, tech, and the 21st century economy? Is China forcing us into that culture war, or is that us? And I could go on and I could go on, right?
So the biggest threat is the US itself.
So China is the threat that Mary and Mike have outlined.
Yeah.
100%. And Mary and Mike were both on the inside. I've never served in government. I've had more students probably than are people in this room today have served in government over my time. But they've been there, they've seen it, they know. And the more you've seen it, the more you're flabbergasted at just how aggressive and active the Chinese are in all these spheres. But my point being is that we can't stand up to that until we get our house in order. And getting our house in order is a building, not a tearing down process. It's a rebuilding of institutions. It's a rediscovery of the values, the mores, the freedoms that made us great. Freedom is, it's not something that's tangible. Freedom is a set of attitudes, a set of behaviors. It's a mindset. It's a way of doing things. It's not about suppressing others. It's beating them in a competition. It's showing that you're better.
Stephen,
So let's do that. We've done that before and succeeded in that before.
But how realistic is it in this era? How far away is the country?
Yeah, so
By the way,
was
UK
alive
is
in
the
the
same.
1970s.
The UK is the same as this.
You
This
weren't alive in the
was.
70s, but I was alive in the 70s.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's the first compliment he's given me.
And
Record that, please, and play it out on repeat.
And in the 1970s, we lost the war in Vietnam, and it was humiliating. We had a president resign under pressure and charges of illegalities. We had the oil shock, which destroyed the Midwest in our country and all the energy-intensive industry. We had 1,800 fire bombings in the 70s. 1,800 domestic fire bombings. You want to talk about violence? We had all of that, and we had disco. We had Donna Summer and John Travolta. And yet, despite that nadir, where we were said to be finished. Remember, the Soviet Union was supposedly on the rise, and they benefited from the oil shock, and then you blink your eye, and it was morning in America again, wasn't it? Yeah. So from the depths, which were much lower than the ones today, and from domestic disarray and loss of American reputation and credibility abroad over the Nixon resignation of Vietnam, and then it was not only morning in America, but people couldn't believe the revival of American power, the revival of American credibility, the collapse of the Soviet Union from its own internal contradictions and vulnerabilities. And so is that possible? Yes, that's possible because we've done that once before. Is it on the horizon right now? Did people think that the former actor in B movies from Hollywood, who was the boss of the union in Hollywood, did anybody think that that's where it was going to come from? No. But there's renewal in the society. There's ruin in a nation, as Adam Smith said, but there's renewal. There are corrective mechanisms. The market is the great corrective mechanism.
I want to bring in Mary and Mike, otherwise it's a
happen.
one-way system. Mary, the room put their hands up when they said, how great is the risk for US being a global leader? Do you see, if the US-led order fades, dare I say it, I know Stephen will say this is wrong, is the next order a Chinese-engineered autocratic system? Or is that far off, based on what Stephen's saying and what you know?
China has enormous vulnerability, and
is it the next step?
We as a nation are terrible at predicting when these regimes fall. We've missed all of them. We missed the fall of the Soviet Union. We missed uprisings in Cuba, in Iran. We missed the Arab Spring. We could, again, I want to repeat, wake up tomorrow.
We missed the fall of Syria, too.
We missed the fall of Syria, too, right? We absolutely miss it. This is huge intelligence apparatus. Everybody missed it. So we're terrible at that. We never get it right. So, and China is inherently, by the nature of its regime, is vulnerable. So we just have to say that as a baseline. I think where I would part a little bit from where Steve is that the parallel is not exact to the Cold War that we won. Why? Well, for several reasons, but mostly because we've never been deeply integrated with an enemy to the degree that we are now, which is an incredibly difficult challenge. And I thought it was a great achievement that Trump won, including my colleague Miles Yu at State. We have to name him, and Nadia Shadlow, who wrote the national security strategy that changed our perspective on the threats that we face.
Yes.
Right? We developed a bipartisan consensus, not just here, but abroad, about the threat posed by China. But we didn't go far enough. We called them a competitor, and that's nonsense. They don't respect rules. France is a competitor. China's not a competitor. China's an enemy. But the US government doesn't deem it as such. And
Why?
so, because politically it's incredibly difficult. We have a lot of entrenched interests because of this economic integration, and I see this all the time. I sit on 2 boards, I talk to investors, I talk to CEOs, right? These are guys who are thinking about the next quarter's results. They're accountants, they're operators, they're former CEOs. They don't think about the world as a place that presents threat. They don't appreciate what the risk is. And the US government hasn't given them guidance on it. Because frankly, we need to have a war, I think, in order for us to wake up and take that political
That's
step.
a big statement.
Well, I think it's true. I mean, it takes a major shock. I mean, we knew terrorism was a threat. We didn't take it seriously until they flew planes into the towers, into the Pentagon. We knew ISIS was a threat, but we didn't take it seriously until Americans were beheaded in Iraq and in Syria, until it was on our TV screen. So it takes a lot to wake us up. So I think the problem is complicated. We are integrated. We have entrenched interests. We haven't leveled with the American people, and there isn't really the political capital to do so today. And frankly speaking, and this is probably the most important point, I don't think we have 50 years like we did in the last Cold War to figure it out for all of the reasons that these panelists have
How many
outlined.
years do you think there is? Is it possible to predict?
I think we should be urgently confronting this threat right now.
Mike, I know you've been out of the White House for a while, but can you take us behind the scenes of what could be happening in terms of what Mary's saying? Just the mechanics of the conversations.
I'm on Mary's side in this debate with Steve. And I'll tell you about the White House. I'm making it in the interest of to make it more interesting to the audience. I'm making it Mike and Mary versus Steve. Let me just add a couple words to what Mary said. There's a scenario I have in my mind, which is why I don't think that Steve's comparison to the Cold War and Reagan is really applicable. What if China decided tomorrow to blockade Taiwan? Would we stand up to that blockade? They've gone through the largest military buildup in history, and we didn't mobilize because of it. It's continuing. So when I talk to people about the threat of China in the Middle East, they say, well, they don't have any military capability. By 2035, they're gonna have an expeditionary military. But that isn't what my number one concern. My number one concern is they're gonna distract us, force us to move resources out of East Asia into the Middle East, make us run through our magazine of interceptors and things like that, just to shift the balance so that they can take Taiwan. What if they went all in on Taiwan? What if Russia, China, and these are not fantasy thoughts. Russia, China, North Korea unleashed their missile capabilities against Japan simultaneously. Are we going to go to war for those countries? And even if we do go to war, are we going to win? Our victory is not guaranteed. There's the revolution took place in American foreign policy around about 2017 when our military leaders realized that there could be a war over Taiwan. We could decide that we were going to go all in and we could still lose. That's a realistic possibility. I asked a friend in the Pentagon a couple of weeks ago, what's the chance that China is going to start blockading Taiwan in the next 2 years? And he said, not high. And I said, what's not high? And he said, 15%. To me, that's really high. That's in the realm of the possible. I do believe we're much stronger in all of the objective categories.
I think China will use soft power, like with Hong Kong, but that was COVID already. That was COVID and Carrie Lee. But I just Carrie Lam rather. I just think they'll be using soft power as well as what could happen. They'll do everything to avoid an invasion.
They'll blockade for a few months, right?
Well, they'll do exercises in the Straits.
They'll blockade for a few months, then they'll pull back, like Mary said, and see how everybody adjusts.
Yep.
It's not going to make the Taiwanese more interested in becoming like Israel, like a porcupine like Israel, right? Which they're not. It's not going to make the Japanese get an atomic bomb, right? Because there's this whole pacifism tradition now in Japan. Let me add just one other thing to this. I agree with Steve that if we get our house in order, we are absolutely unstoppable. But who here is going to bet that the values of this body are going to become the undisputed values of our universities and our elite, in the next 5 years? I'm amazed. So Israel just took down Iran 2 or 3 notches. That's a victory for the United States. That's a victory against China, as far as I'm concerned. And I listened to Tucker Carlson telling me that the Jews are dragging the United States into a needless war, and there's a deal to be had with Iran that we're not taking. There's no deal to be had with Iran. Or behind that is a suggestion that the Middle East just doesn't matter. We can compete with China without worrying about the Middle East. This is a fantasy. It's like saying we can play chess on 3 quadrants of the board, but we're going to leave the 4th quadrant, to our adversary to fill. What's going to happen? China and Iran are going to increase all of the activities.
But where was China when Iran needed their help? To Stephen's point last night, actually, at dinner.
No,
China wasn't there to help Iran, was it?
No, but absolutely not. That's one of the advantages.
That's not a great. That's not a great alliance.
And Russia
Right.
didn't need it. I know for a fact that after October last year, when Israel hit Iran,
Yeah.
Khamenei called up Putin and said, "We came to your aid when you were in trouble, and we brought you the drones to make up for your lack of long-range artillery, and I need you." He ordered, actually, Putin. He said, "You will come to my aid now and help me rebuild my air defenses and so on." And Putin said, "Niet, I won't do it." Right? So look, their alliance system is shabby. There's no doubt about it. But I look at this. Do you remember a couple of years ago, the Biden administration had to take the arm of the Emiratis and pull it up behind their back and slam their head down on the table and say, "You will not let the Chinese build a military base in the Emirates." China would have 2 military bases now. Because it has Djibouti, it would have this one, the one on the Strait of Hormuz. If we hadn't done that, why are our allies, if we're so strong and so attractive and have so much more going for us than this shabby alliance system, why are all of our allies hedging toward it? And they are all hedging, absolutely.
Stephen, I want to bring you in. I want to also weave in some questions. Thank you for all the questions that you've sent in. I'm conscious of time. There's a great question from David Box. And Stephen, it's related to what Mike and Mary are saying. Russia and China's relationship is strengthening. Is Putin using Ukraine to distract from China aggression? And then also adding to, because it is you against Mary and Mike.
You can all have your fantasies. I mean, I don't know why Mary was the only one allowed to go to wardrobe before the event.
They told me I was
The
the
rest-
rose between two thorns.
Why? Hey, I'm on your side. Why did you make me a thorn?
We're all on the same
Balancing.
side. We're on America.
She's referring to me, Mike.
That's the side we're on.
We are.
And there's room for disagreement because that's what made America stronger. Authoritarian regimes, they're afraid of disagreement. They try to have a public pretense of unanimity. They suppress people's opinions. This is a nation that's been polarized since 1776, when it was 3 million people. Now it's 340 million people, and you expect everything from far left to far right in a nation of 340 million people. And it's okay to have that. What's not okay is to lack a national purpose, is to lose the national story. It's to fail to remember how we got here, where our power comes from, why we have these freedom conferences. So, on Russia and China and North Korea, in the short run, we're all dead. That's our problem. Keynes, you'll know, had once said, John Maynard Keynes, in the long run, we're all dead, so nobody cares about the long run, they only care about the here and now. In the long run, we're good, because our system is superior. It's in the short run that we're all dead. So we have to get out of this short run that we're stuck in, elongate the short run into the long run. It sounds abstract, but they distract us to weaken us. We don't distract them to weaken them sufficiently.
So Putin is using Ukraine to distract.
So Putin
do you think?
is after Ukraine because he wants to subordinate Ukraine. He wants to destroy the sovereignty of that country.
And to distract from China aggression?
He wants to roll back the post-Cold War settlement. He wants to destroy the Reagan H.W. Bush achievement. He wants to roll the whole thing back. You can do a deal with that. You can just surrender to him and say, okay, you take Ukraine, we'll roll NATO back, and Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush and all of that didn't win and didn't succeed, and you can have it all. So he's got his own agenda. It coincides with China's agenda, which is to tie America and its allies down, whether it's with the Houthis, whether it's with fentanyl. All those fentanyl deaths, that's on China. Mary can tell you the inside story on that. And so they are doing these things to tie us down, to distract us, to give them more space for their ambitions, And we don't do enough to tie them down and to distract them. And so, people talking about universities, let me conclude on this point. So we had 25 students at Stanford marched on the campus chanting Viva Palestina. We had 25 of them. What's Stanford University? What is it? I'm there now 3 years. What is it? It's quantum. It's neuroscience. It's AI. It's material science and nano. And I could go on down the list. It's breathtaking what Stanford University is. And you want to know something? So is Harvard University. I had cancer. I had 3 cancers, not related to each other, one after the other. And I had the greatest doctors. Where did they have their MDs from? They had them from Harvard University, not from Trump University. I had them from Harvard. And so in rectifying this terrible oppression of a tiny group on our campuses, and I got to tell you, it's not big. They don't have any students. 25 marching students is not 7,000 students who are in laboratories preparing for the Olympics where Stanford won 39 medals. Okay? We got to remember what we've got, these innovation ecosystems. We don't destroy biomedical science, which saved my life, because we have a bunch of ignoramuses in Middle Eastern studies departments. And we have them, and they are ignorant. And they don't have any students. And the students that they have are irredeemable. So God bless.
You've got to, yeah. And
So,
I also
yeah,
want to applaud, Stephen, to have 3 cancers in, what was it, 18-month period?
Yes.
God, you take it. That also requires you to have a lot of guts to get through that, and your wife.
Well,
So,
anyway, I'm
it's
on
good
the
to
other
have you here.
side now because
Yeah.
I had some of the greatest doctors
Yeah,
on this planet.
yeah.
And if we undermine that, that's not China, that's not Chinese intelligence, that's us,
Well said.
like I was saying. We are better. We can do better. We have done better. Is it the same? Is the Cold War the same as what the thing with China now? Of course not. But was the Peloponnesian War the same as World
Right.
War I?
But we have to say
The
that.
same as World War II?
Right.
And yet we're able to call them all
But we have
wars.
to say that.
I know the integration. I was against it when it happened in real time. I said, I don't think China should have most favored nation status. I don't think they should be in the WTO. I don't think we're going to convert them like we did with Nazi Germany and Imperial Japan, because they have a Leninist regime.
Right.
And I don't think this is going to work. So in real time, I was
right.
against it. So, now I seem to be on the other side somehow. Okay, I'll take that. I'll take whatever side is necessary. But there's one side here. It's our side.
Yeah.
And our side can do this. We've done it before. We did it in 1776. I'm sorry, John. And we've done it many times since
I wasn't
then.
there, Stephen.
You want to understand Trump, you go read the biography of Andrew Jackson by H.W. Brands. One of the best biographies in American history ever written. And it's because there were a lot of people angry, justifiably, at things that shouldn't have been happening. And Andrew Jackson destroyed the first Federal Reserve, which we then didn't have again for another several decades, and we had no international financial system as a result. So we've done this before, and we've come out the other side before, because there is a dynamism, and there is a freedom in this society that's in the air, in the oxygen, in the mother's milk. And it's working, so why should we destroy it ourselves like Lincoln warned in 1838?
The disagreement here is that I don't think that history is going to do this for us.
No.
I don't think we can just assume
We're going to
that-
do
that
it or not. It's us.
We have to put our house in order, and our house, it's going to take a long time. It's going to be it's a big challenge, and there's an immediate threat. To your point about the medicine and science, we have handed to China our science. They're now, as Mary said, they're unlike the Soviet Union in the Cold War. China is leading in a lot of the most important industries that are going to determine economic growth and military power in the coming decades. And we did that. We handed them.
And we can
I
undo it,
have
though.
What?
We can undo it, Mike.
No,
We
I
can.
don't- I don't-
I do believe we can undo it, and I think and I believe that we. How did all this conversation start here? Because Mary and I are saying that there's an immediate threat.
Yes.
It's very serious, and we could be defeated.
I heard somebody say in the short run we're all dead.
Yeah.
Can I, we've got times against us. I want to fit in one last question. To Mary, actually, or to everybody, but also to Mary.
yeah.
Chloe Carmichael in the audience somewhere. And I'm sorry I couldn't fit all the questions in, but you can imagine this could be on 5 hours easily.
Chloe, freedom of speech, Carmichael.
Is it?
Oh,
Right,
Dr.
okay.
Chloe, hello.
There she is, Chloe. What do you think of President Trump's leadership in these matters? To Mary, it's no secret that Trump and Mike Pompeo are now estranged, partly on approaches to Iran. Who do you think is right? Is it hard to navigate politically?
I wouldn't say, I'll be short, I wouldn't say they're estranged. I would say that the president's approach to foreign policy is deeply misrepresented in some of our major conservative institutions. I'll just speak from my experience. You know, he's classed as an isolationist, as a transactional person. He is a transactional person, no doubt. But if you look at the record, we are the ones that revivified the Quad. We are the ones that started energetic campaigns to start to win again in the United Nations and other international institutions. We are the ones that got NATO and our NATO allies to increase their contributions, long overdue. Many presidents have tried. We are the ones that did the Abraham Accords. We are the ones where the Europeans came to us and wanted to start to talk about China. Look today, just at the US Navy flotilla that is floating off the coast of Venezuela to send a message. We're the ones that paid attention to the Caribbean again. I could go on and on and on, right? None of these things are reported in any depth in our national media because they look at the news of the day and they don't want to stand back. And for many people, it's offensive to say, gosh, Trump's done a lot of great things internationally. We should give him some credit for that. They don't do it. So I think the way that his role and how he's engaging American power in the world is complex. It's not perfect. I don't like some of it. I love other parts of it. But it certainly isn't a complete and nuanced picture in the way that I think that it should be.
Just one sentence with a lot of semicolons. The key to Middle East strategy is there's two parts to it. It's Iran and Israel. Those are the two key policies. And by that standard, I will take Donald Trump on his worst day over Obama and Biden on their best. And certainly, can you imagine what the best day of Kamala Harris would have been on this issue?
Stephen, last word?
Last word is thank you for the invitation. Great conference. I can't wait to hear the rest of it.
God bless
and
America.
keep it going.
And just to add, we're going to be actually discussing the bias in the media at 1 o'clock with a fantastic panel of very dynamic, very brave voices who are not frightened of being cancelled. So look forward to that. But can I just say thank you very much, Stephen, Mary, and Michael, because you are unbelievable. And Jennifer, thank you again.
Great pleasure. Thank you.